Win or lose in 2020, Trump's Mount Rushmore Address, warning of the left's cultural revolution, is his most important speech yet. Hello, this is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button. Today we're going to be talking about the President's 4th of July Day address to the nation. Basically, it was an unapologetic defense of American culture, freedom, values, and history. And it was delivered at Mount Rushmore, and I think it's a very important and very timely speech by the president. I think it's one that he'll probably be remembered for, win or lose in 2020. This is not necessarily about the politics. It's more about what's going on in the country at this moment. And again, he provided a pretty good defense, in my opinion, against what he calls, quote, a merciless campaign to wipe out our history, defame our heroes, erase our values, and indoctrinate our children. And a lot of the context for this, I think the speech is the riots that are going on in the wake of the death of George Floyd in police custody in Minneapolis. And people are speaking out against racial injustice, against police brutality. And I think some of that's well placed in the context of the dialogue that needs to occur, but the violence cannot obviously be condoned. The political violence, the vandalism, people are being killed. Downtown Seattle was taken over for a few weeks by this Capitol Hill autonomous zone, and eventually police broke that up. You do need police. People were dying inside of the Chaz, so ultimately you want to protect society. You need law and order. You're not going to have any justice if you don't have if you can't maintain civil order. You're not going to have courts that function, and so on and so forth. There won't be any due process. There won't be any constitutional protections from the court system that can be provided. And the Constitution is what undergirds our liberty in this country, and the reason for it is because in the natural state of nature, man can be very cruel to other men, and so you oftentimes need a government to stand in the way of that, to provide civil order and to provide for society in a civil society, most importantly. But while these riots are continuing right now, I don't think the cultural revolutionaries are making any distinction between racial injustices today or in the past in our history and those who have stood in the way of that and who have paved the path for liberty and freedom. And we see that because of the symbols that they're going after. George Washington, well, he's not the a founding father of our country. No, he's a genocidal colonist. Thomas Jefferson, he was a slave owner. They've also been going after statues of Ulysses S. Grant. He fought the Civil War under President Abraham Lincoln that helped to abolish slavery. He was the victorious general there. There might still be a slavery if we hadn't won that war. In Boston, they're tearing down a statue of Abraham Lincoln abolishing slavery. In Rochester, Frederick Douglass, a very famous abolitionist, his statue was torn down on the anniversary of his famous speech, "What to the slave is the 4th of July," and he gave that on July 5th, 1852. And so I think this is an attack on not only racial injustices, but the responses to those. And you can tell because they want to go after Abraham Lincoln. They are going after Ulysses S. Grant, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. And the idea is that America's evil and that we're not a good country, but look at all the progress we've made. Look at all the blood that we've shed through the American Revolution, the Civil War. Hundreds of thousands of people died in that war that ultimately resulted in banning of slavery in this country. And then you got the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, the civil rights protections that came with that. And there was the Civil Rights Acts of the 1860s and 1870s, and then again in the 1950s and the 1960s. That I believe have brought forward this, more civil rights in this country. It's been a long struggle. It abolished segregation eventually as well in the 50s and the 60s. And there's been a lot of progress that's been made. And I think that the revolutionaries today, if you're tearing down a Ulysses S. Grant statue, you don't care about that history or you're ignorant of it. And so this is kind of the context for the president's speech. I think that when you just look at Thomas Jefferson, the Declaration of Independence says that all men are created equal. And that's what inspired Abraham Lincoln in the Lincoln-Douglas debates that rose him to national prominence. He was saying that the Declaration of Independence says all men are created equal. So how can we have slavery in this country? And but for the Declaration, but for Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and the American Revolution, frankly, you don't get Abraham Lincoln. You don't get to abolish slavery. So this country could look a whole lot differently right now. But for the sacrifices, I believe, that were made in the past, in our history, as imperfect as it is, it's going in the right direction. So I wanted you to listen, though, to a bit of the president's speech, because he gives, he speaks a lot about this cultural revolution that's being undertaken right now, and also cancel culture that I believe has a great deal to do with this. So let's take a listen here.
1776 represented the culmination of thousands of years of Western civilization and the triumph of not only spirit, but of wisdom, philosophy, and reason. And yet, as we meet here tonight, there is a growing danger that threatens every blessing our ancestors fought so hard for, struggled, they bled to secure. Our nation is witnessing a merciless campaign to wipe out our history, defame our heroes, erase our values, and indoctrinate our children. Angry mobs are trying to tear down statues of our founders, deface our most sacred memorials, and unleash a wave of violent crime in our cities. Many of these people have no idea why they're doing this, but some know exactly what they are doing. They think the American people are weak and soft and submissive. But no, the American people are strong and proud, and they will not allow our country and all of its values, history, and culture to be taken from them. One of their political weapons is cancel culture, driving people from their jobs, shaming dissenters, and demanding total submission from anyone who disagrees. This is the very definition of totalitarianism, and it is completely alien to our culture and to our values, and it has absolutely no place in the United States of America. This attack on our liberty, our magnificent liberty, must be stopped, and it will be stopped very quickly. We will expose this dangerous movement, protect our nation's children, end this radical assault, and preserve our beloved American way of life. In our schools, our newsrooms, even our corporate boardrooms, there is a new far-left fascism that demands absolute allegiance. If you do not speak its language, perform its rituals, recite its mantras, and follow its commandments, then you will be censored, banished, blacklisted, persecuted, and punished. It's not going to happen to us. Make no mistake, this left-wing cultural revolution is designed to overthrow the American Revolution. In so doing, they would destroy the very civilization that rescued billions from poverty, disease, violence, and hunger, and that lifted humanity to new heights of achievement, discovery, and progress. To make this possible, they are determined to tear down every statue, symbol, and memory of our national heritage. True.
And so I think you get the idea there. The president is speaking about not just an attack on statues, but an attack on, I think, our country itself. And what's going on with the riots is a big part of that. But it also it goes beyond that. It goes into our schools. It goes into our businesses and our capacity to have to be able to freely express our politics. Without this shaming cancel culture that's been pervasive. You see it in media, again, schools, universities, and so forth. And I think that it's an attempt to stifle dissent against this cultural revolution. And if we're not careful, it could overtake a lot of what's going on right now and really overtake our country. It doesn't take a majority to institute some sort of dictatorial rule. In Germany and Italy, those were achieved by democratic means. In other countries, such as Russia or China, it was by violence of force that these countries can be overthrown and civil society can erode away into something that's far more dangerous, I think, to people. And we never want to see that happen here. And again, I don't think the revolutionaries, I don't think they're really that concerned about helping the country move forward in this regard and beyond the racial injustices. I think they're looking at all the progress we've made and they're saying not good enough. And so they're not merely going after symbols of racial injustice, but also America's stand against racial injustice and for civil rights, saying not good enough. And so I think it's a war on patriotism and love of country more generally. And can a nation really endure that hates itself? I think that's a question we're going to find out here. The radicals don't think so. So they target our human nature to kind of look at things generationally. And that these historical grudges, they have to be avenged. Perpetually, it seems that we can never progress as a society. If there were any sins in the past, we have to constantly cleanse our society over and over and over again until everyone is pure, I guess. I mean, it's pretty sick. I think this is the most important warning, though, on cancel culture in the president's speech. It's because we're becoming afraid to express that we're good people, we're a good country, we want to get better. You have to submit to this cultural revolution's thinking, or else you could be canceled too. And that's a very dangerous place to be. Now, President Trump declares it has no place in America, but again, this is very pervasive. He talks about boardrooms, newsrooms, our schools, and so you see it in pop culture and as well, and in business. People are afraid to talk about politics nowadays. So what gives? On one hand, it's easy to say or to dismiss the cancel culture as merely a symptom of, they're just opposing President Trump, and if in 2020 or 2024, as the case may be, after President Trump leaves office, it'll go away. But I don't think that's true. If you're targeting Thomas Jefferson and Abraham Lincoln, clearly there's an assault on America and American history, because those figures weren't even good enough for the mob. So if Trump loses in November, we'll find out very quickly if this has to do with him. Is this revolution against just Trump? And we'll get rid of Trump and things will go back to the way they were. But I don't think so. I think that in the immediate sense, the election is a battlefield that this is going to be fought. But I don't think it's going to end there. This war for America's hearts and minds, win or lose for Trump. It's for the future of this country. It is a struggle that if we lose, it is America as a whole that will lose. And I'll leave you with the close here. The question may be whether there is good enough sense left in the nation to heed the president's warning and reject this new brand of radicalism that is tearing away at the very fabric of our nation. We face a collectivist nightmare of social tyranny, censorship, and thought police. Free people should speak up now before it is too late. That's the commentary. This is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and have a good day.